Hi everyone, I'm Joseph Ungoco, Worshipful Master 2021 at Beach Cities Masonic Lodge. I'm here today with past Master of the Month, Joe Workman, who was Master of Beach Cities in 2017. Welcome. Tell us a little bit about how your Masonic journey began. Are you a legacy? Were your relatives Masons?
So my grandfather was a member of the Redondo Lodge down on Catalina Avenue. And I happened to notice that he had a fez when I was a little kid, but didn't really understand very much about it. My dad had a lot of great stories and was very, very happy that I joined the Masonic Lodge. He told me a lot of stories about my grandfather who passed away when I was very young, how he would go down to the shrine in a tuxedo and really liked doing a lot of the charity work. When I was down at the Redondo Lodge several years ago, acting as the secretary for the day, I happened to open up the log and see my grandfather's signature from the 1950s in the log book. And when I became a Master Mason, you proudly wear a ring. My grandfather's ring was cleaned up, redipped in gold, and presented to me at that time at the lodge itself. Kind of a cool thing is there were two stones. One stone that was natural and a beautiful diamond. Next to it was a broken diamond. And the jeweler asked me if I wanted to replace the second broken diamond. And with the symbolism of the Masonic Lodge, I said, no, absolutely not. Keep the broken diamond in there. He looked at me like I was a nut. But it meant something to me that even my grandfather didn't fix it. He knew the symbolism as that diamond broke. And it was interesting is I guess diamonds were not very valuable back in those days as they are now. So it was very easy for them to have replaced it, but he chose not to. So, so my father was a DMOA and out of high school got a job and left all of that behind him because there is quite a bit of work to do. And he joined the Rotary Club fairly early in his South Bay career. So we're a three-generation South Bay family, and he ended up going through the ranks of the Rotary Club to something would be like a district inspector, which would be a secretary going to other lodges and making sure that they're maintaining their bylaws and budgets and things like that. So that's kind of really reason why I chose was to look at the different diversification of groups, taking a look at what we did Masonic-wise, charity-wise, versus what the Rotary Club was doing charity-wise. And I wanted to kind of get away from my dad's life and charity because I had grown up doing that from charity with my father, supporting him, and to go into a little bit different kind of a path. And we could touch, two different ways of touching charity in the South Bay.
It's amazing. And how did you come to Beach Cities?
So I have a mailbox store that receives mail, and I was getting notifications from the lodge in one of my mailbox customers' mailbox. And I mentioned to him, "Are you a Freemason?" He said, "Yes, I am, and I haven't been in a while. I'm a pilot, and I'm out in the field a lot, so I need to go back and say hello to people. Would you like to join me for dinner?" So I put on a suit and came to the lodge and happened to notice about 5 or 6 customers that I knew from my store, and had a past master's wife who was also one of my customers embraced me and yelled my name and took me around to tables and introduced me, and I was completely hooked.
Brilliant. And how quickly did you join the officer line?
So about 7 or 8 months into the membership of the lodge, there was a kind of a crisis, kind of a call out for one of my mentors, and he was paying for a job, and the contractor abandoned the job with no intention of ever fixing all of the labor that he had done, and they had spent about $40,000 on his driveway, and it was covered in grout. And he was in despair. So I came to the lodge and I told him who he was and that he needed help. And I had about 45 people show up at 7 a.m. The next weekend and we had donuts and supplies, and they worked until about 1 in the afternoon, scrubbing all the grout with acid off of his driveway. And it was an amazing feat. I mean, you know, coming 40 people in one weekend, boom, just like that. So one of the masters coming in said, "I'd like you to join my line," meaning, you know, just join the officers. You know, nothing permanent, just join the officers, because you know how to bring people together. So I said, okay, you know, I can do that. And it was the chaplain job, and the chaplain just has to be in attendance. So it's kind of grooming you for something in the future. And then after about 6 months in that job, they came to me and said, "Would you like to join the line?" And I said, yes, not knowing what that entailed, which was, wow. I'm still indebted to my wife for all the nights I missed. And then I went home and asked her permission if it was okay for me to have said yes, which is the wrong way to do it. So you don't do that. It's a rite of passage. If you can call it anything else, it's a rite of passage that you can say, you know, in a check mark, I've done this and I'm a better person for it. I've learned a ton of things and I'm a better person for it.
And when you arrived in the East, what was your year like?
Well, it was 2017, and that was the 200th anniversary of the creation of Grand Lodge of England. So we had all of this expectation of, you know, what are we going to do? And we didn't really prepare for it very well. And so we had a couple of banquets and kind of patted each other on the back and, you know, said, oh, great. You know, we're celebrating our 200th anniversary with, you know, a glass of wine. And it started kind of going into my year a little bit deeper. And I started realizing, you know, we've got to actually have a very cohesive group that understands what our objectives are, and you know, play hard, work hard type of a situation. And I just happened to be a master that was continuing on a path that had been created about 3 years prior with Mike Heron and Rob Ray. So Mike Heron was master 2 years prior to me, and his big picture was to get the lodge into a situation where we could move into a new phase of recruitment and younger faces and community. But we had this dilapidated bachelor pad building, and it had just been literally put together by bachelors. And you know, one example we were talking about, Joseph, was a toolbox that someone donated to the lodge because it was a great idea. I had these tools left over, but then the toolbox sat in the main entrance for 6 months with dust on it, and no one cared. Everything looked great, but it wasn't something that was very inviting to the public. It wasn't something that we could be proud of to rent the building out or to do something productive. And so May of my year, it was brought to my attention that there was a past master that wanted to cut the top of the building off and put residential housing for elderly people. And, you know, could we look into that? And, you know, of course, everyone was like, oh, no, you know, not in my backyard. And then a couple of people came to me and said, what happens if we just knock down the building and built a mega complex? Okay, well, we would drain all of our money, but we could do it. But you know, we've got the money, we can drain our money, and then we have this shopping mall. And then a couple other people said, how about we just sell the building and go somewhere east and have a mega complex built and live off the proceeds and donate charity and have all this extra money left over for charity. And that was a third idea. So I took this to a group of past masters. It was very private. It was at John Bauer's house in May. And they were adamant about not selling the building, keeping the property. So that was pretty much, you know, set. And then we kind of walked away from that meeting with, you know, some hope that something would happen, but we didn't really have a direction. And then about August, that subject was brought up a second time. And I volunteered to work on a report to look into if we were to knock the building down and build it up, sell it, or possibly remodel it. And I presented to the lodge in November of 2017, which normally in November, past masters are usually thinking about retiring and moving on. And I felt that we only have 364 days as a master. Every day counts. So I presented the meeting and selling the building and knocking the building down. Everybody was adamant, absolutely not. And then I kind of threw a little sideball in and said, well, why don't we remodel it? And here's this beautiful presentation about what a remodel would look like. And everybody was very happy with that. And we accomplished something that we've been working on for 3 to 5 years, 3 to 5 year plan. But when I started talking with some older past masters, it had been a 10 and 25 year plan that had failed several times. So no one ever saw this building ever being remodeled. And so that was, one of the great moments. Something that we talked about prior to that was building a diversification of our officer line. We have many cities we represent: Hawthorne, Inglewood, Lawndale, Gardena, Redondo, Torrance, Hermosa, Manhattan. We've got all these cities. Even though there are lodges in those areas, many of our members actually come. I live in Torrance. I don't go to the Torrance Lodge. And so when you walk into beach cities, you happen to notice these old black and white photos of all these gray-haired white men. And that's not who the beach cities people are. We've got a diversified membership, but we don't have a diversified officer line. And when I started looking at our officer line, I wasn't looking at it with any type of proactive look, but I saw the talent. And I was very proud that we had people that were outside of our norm that had so much talent and so much to give, with culture, with a different outlook that they could be teaching us. So that in the future, in 10 years from now, people can look up on that wall and go, oh, there's other people that have done this. This is not a club that I don't belong to. This is a club I do belong to. And hopefully with the youth of these officers, they'll still be around in those times to be able to embrace those people. So I think really those two things I'm very happy, very pleased about.
That's fantastic. And so what advice do you have for any of our newer members, some of whom, their Masonic journey has been stalled, they were initiated before COVID, but haven't been passed or raised yet? What would you tell them about Masonry or about being a member of this lodge in particular?
Well, Masonry is a journey. You can't say it's going to happen in 1 minute. You wait a time of patience, and it's all about mentorship. We have mentors. We have the talent. We want to give our input to each other. There are people above you and people below you at all times that are willing to be your partner. And so when people are a member of this lodge and they're kind of lost, I always say, when was the last time you went to lodge? And they'll say, oh, it's been a couple of years. Well, that's why you're missing that connection. It's all about connection. The military predominantly is male, and there's that connection, that brotherhood. And Masonry has that same type of connection. It's trust. It's trusting someone with your car keys. It's trusting someone with your child. That type of bond and that trust is what we have at the lodge. And making sure that if they are missing that, they don't understand that, then come to lodge and get connected. Find a mentor that can explain what that means and what that does, so that they understand, they get the full message, the full platter. It's not a bag of potato chips. It's a cornucopia of food. And that's what really Masonry is. It's important to make sure you're connected at all times. Texting your brothers during COVID, checking up on them, delivering some food out of the norm, just doing nice little things, delivering some flowers to their family. Whatever those weird little connections are going to pay off. It's going to make you feel better, and it can make them feel better.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciated hearing more of your story, the parts that I didn't know already. and hopefully our brethren will as well. So thank you again for joining us.